Hi, I'm at the end of my story here with my marriage to Bob. Um, okay, I filed divorce. Actually, I made up the divorce papers, got a template, and I filled in the blanks and everything. And he just signed it right off, signed off custody of his 3 kids, gave me the whole full custody. And he had to go get his own apartment because his girlfriend didn't want him anymore either. And if you want to know more, watch my last episode. So I did want to mention, first of all, I gotta say, see my necklace, my new necklace. Um, I went to the mailbox and I got a box from a friend from back from school in New Jersey, a girlfriend who I have mentioned she was part of my story earlier, and she's in Michigan now, and she sent me, she made this. Isn't that sweet? So sweet. I just got this afternoon, and some other things she sent me. So uh, it's nice to be loved. And um, anyway, I gotta say that in retrospect, I got to talk a little bit about the church, okay, that I was in, Seventh-day Adventist Church. And we got a new pastor a little bit before all this happened. Um, he was very young. He was too young. He was like 27 and he was married, but they didn't have any kids yet, very young. Sweet guy, everybody loved him, but he was not experienced enough. He was really preaching hard and heavy on the idea of sanctification, which is um, becoming uh, right and pure and perfect, really. And we're so far from perfect. We are all so far from perfect. It was like not the right sermons to be hearing for us at that time. I mean, maybe a little bit here and there, but he was like really harping on this subject, And I think that had a big part of what was going on in our church because our whole church fell apart. Um, as I told you in the past, if you're not following, if you care to know, go back because I explained some things about how Bob and I we really uh, revived that church because it was dead when we started going there. We got all these young couples with families, and then even some of the older people who were going to other churches, like in the city, they started coming because they saw the church was starting to happen. Things were starting to happen in the church. It was feeling alive, and there were Pastor Ben was doing some good sermons. Everybody liked him, but then he left, and so uh, Troy was, like I say, he was a sweetheart trying to do his best, but he was too much, too much. And he even ended up getting divorced a few years later. Uh, his wife said to me one time she liked him better before he found Jesus. And this is a problem that happens a lot in Christianity. You know, um, I'm all about Jesus, but people are not all about the Bible. I'm about the Bible. People are not. They hear a little bit, read a little bit here and there, and they go with that, and they don't get the whole picture, which is much better and much bigger. Um, anyway, so uh, during this time, I mentioned last time that Bob's boss in the hospital called him aside, and he actually said that Bob's behavior was hurting the morale of the whole hospital staff and told Bob he hadn't quit the affair or he was going to get terminated. And he did have to leave the hospital. I don't remember if they actually fired him, just told him to, I guess he did, told him to leave. And Bob left and he got another job at Sharps Hospital in San Diego. And he got his own apartment. So during this time, now it was getting to be, it was around winter time, and now winter time's not all that bad in Southern California, but we were in the mountains, in the mountain valley, and it actually did snow that winter, only one time. I remember really clearly when it snowed that it came on the radio when I was driving in the snow, which was pretty scary on the mountain roads. Um, but it was when President Bush, the first President Bush, was president, and he had bombed Iraq. I believe that's what happened. I remember hearing that. That would have been late 80s. Anyway, it was cold and snowy and everything a little bit. I mean, it wasn't always that bad. Usually the sun came out and it got pretty warm in the daytime, but it did snow once in a while. And I mean, I went to work and I was the only car with snow, but I had 2 or 3 inches of snow on my car. Nobody else had snow. I told you that we didn't have any heat. We just and this is our other new old house, and it had a potbelly stove in the living room, and that was our only source of heat. And we had to gather wood and all that, and Bob would chop wood. Well, we had a big pile of wood outside, but what I remember, the saddest moment that I remember after he actually told me when I found out about this, but when I was alone taking care of myself and the kids, my saddest point was one night when it was cold and it was raining and I had to put on rain gear to go out and get wood for the fire, and just feeling like a pioneer woman living all by herself. And I remember that was only one and only time I really, really felt sorry for myself and thought, how could he leave us like that? I mean, we needed him. He's the one that brought us out to the country, living this pioneer life and everything, and then he just abandons us and all. Anyway, that was one night remember feeling sorry for myself. I want to tell you also, in that house in the living room, there was tarantulas that lived in the walls, and one would come out of the crack in the up by where the molding is, where the ceiling hits the wall, and would come out and climb down the wall at night. And anyway, that was where we lived, and we weren't scared of the tarantulas, though. They were okay. We liked them, but not in the bedroom. I never saw one in the bedroom. Um, so let's see. I got to tell you that there was a guy in the church. I told you that we were friends with everybody and all these young couples, and so um, we all were close. We hung out together a lot, and the kids did it together and all that. So anyway, this one guy that was close to Bob, he was probably Bob's best friend, but I was also good friends with him, right? Well, one day, now at this time, I told you I was very active in volunteer work for the church. And so this one year I was community services leader, and I decided to do a Thanksgiving dinner for the people in the community that would be eating Thanksgiving alone. And I asked for volunteers to help me out, and this one lady from church said that she would help me, right? And that's all we needed was two, because it was just a little town community. So we were we are gonna make, because we're vegetarians, right? We're gonna make a vegetarian dinner for all the people that were lonely at Thanksgiving. No turkey. Anyway, when the day came, and we had 70 people coming to this dinner, and I had plans to make this uh, fake turkey thing, vegetarian fake turkey thing, and it tasted good, but of course it's not real turkey. And we did of course, the other stuff, the mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkin pie. stuffing, vegetables, salad, bread, all that stuff, right? Well, different people from the church were making different dishes to bring and drop off. Um, but I was planning to do certain things right in the kitchen of the community center. We weren't doing this at the church, we were doing it at the community center in Dulzura. So the day comes, and the lady who volunteered to help me, she tells me that she can't make it. She doesn't feel good, she can't make it, but she sends her husband. She's sending her husband to help me instead, right? Well, he's a good friend. I know him, I'm comfortable with him. That's all fine and good. Cool, right? Anyway, that day he helped me, and we scrambled to get things on the table on time and everything. It all went beautiful. It was really beautiful. 70 people we served, and they all appreciated it. Nobody complained that there was no turkey, and they all ate and filled up anyway, and it was all great and good and groovy. And but me and that guy, we really bonded that day. I mean, we worked hard together, and when you're working closely with somebody, it's easy to get close to them, and it's danger in the workplace often. Anyway, this guy, like I say, good friends, he had been telling me, not only that day, but, other times I've heard, he's told me about problems he had with his wife. And the wife who I was friends with, but not really tight friends with, like I say, she volunteered to help me. I was really counting on her, and at the last minute, she bows out. It was She was kind of like that towards me, that she kind of backed away from me lots of times. um anyway, but we were close, and she used to complain to me about her husband a lot, and I thought this guy was like close to the perfect man, and husband and father and everything. I thought, wow, he was like really close to perfect, and she was always complaining about him, about everything, about the way he was with his kids, about the way he was with her, even the sex life, everything. And then after that day when we worked together, we got even closer, and he started confiding in me more about the problems with his marriage, as he knew what I was going through and everything. And needless to say, I guess you can kind of figure out what happened. Yeah, we got a little too close a few times, and it was bad because we felt so guilty about it. We really couldn't enjoy being with each other. It happened 2 or 3 times, and we really and truly felt so guilty. Um, he also, um, he bought me a dryer. I never had a dryer. I never felt like I needed a dryer. Clothesline was good enough for me, but he bought me a used dryer and hooked it up for me and everything. That was real sweet. And he was coming over and checking on me and the kids and being super nice to the boys, and, just doing whatever he could, to make up for me losing my husband. Well, anyway, but like I say, we felt so guilty and everything that we couldn't we couldn't really have a real affair. It was not good. And he even, um, for a while, he was very active in the church also. And he started sitting in the back row, and then he stopped going to church, and um, another one down. Um, then I had this other guy who I had mentioned before earlier. He was an attorney. I worked for him actually a little bit from home, and he a very devoted Christian, and he was in the church, but he used to go to another church in town more. And he used to live by us, and then he got married, and he moved a little ways down the road, and then that marriage did not last long at all. Got divorced, And he actually went to the Sahara Desert and um, to fast for 40 days like Jesus did. So he actually only lasted 30 days, but he was out there in the desert for 40 days. And when he came home, boy, he was different. He had changed and he aged. He looked a lot older when he came home, and he had changed. Now, this is a guy I told you that he had his secret prayer place was under his bed. Very devoted Christian. Um, he did a paper, um, a Bible study, and he typed it all up about sex. And he came to the conclusion that it was okay for him to have a sex life, even though he wasn't married anymore, that there was nothing wrong with that. And that's another thing. I'm not going to go into Bible study, that's not the common thing, you know, for people to think when they're thinking about, living the Christian life. However, I will say this right now. Um, I might as well say it. I'm not going to go to the scriptures and all, but I'm going to tell you, um, I do believe that God intended for one man and one woman to live, as husband and wife and have children and live together, be committed for the rest of their life. Yes, that's the ideal, what God wanted and what he wants still today, but there's very few that go by that because, for one thing, part of the purpose for marriage is procreation, and even the idea of birth control is really against God. That's a sin. I do believe that's a sin, but it's one of those sins that has become accepted as okay. And I believe that's against God. It's a lack of faith. Um, and divorce, of course, is against God, except in the Bible, adultery is a valid reason. But in the Bible, God did not like you remarrying, or, but um, all the sexual immorality warnings in the Bible, talking about the sexual sins, really and truly, they're mostly about like very promiscuous orgies, multiple sex partners, and really wild sex, because a lot of that was going on in the New Testament days. I mean, even in the Old Testament. But I think that's what the sexual immorality is more about than one man and one woman. If they are committed to each other in a sexual relationship and they're not promiscuous, they're devoted to each other. I don't think that's the biggest sexual sin thing. I think it's more about, um, multiple partners and partying, having sex without any commitment, or without love, with just animal sex. I think that's um, a lot of it, and there was a lot of it in the Bible, boy. If you haven't read the Bible, there is a whole lot of sex stories in the Bible, wild sex stories. Yeah, so I think that's where the sexual sin more comes out. Even talking about it, homosexuality, I think that the greater sin is being promiscuous, um, more than just two people committed in a relationship. I don't believe in flaunting your sexuality, homosexuals or heterosexuals. Flaunting your sexuality, I don't believe that's what God wants us to be doing. So, back to the story. Sorry for the deviation. Okay. So this guy, after he gives me this essay he typed up about sex and how it's okay and everything. Anyway, he presented it to me and he told me that he was just making himself available to service me, right? Um, I didn't like that at all. I mean, actually, if he would have asked me to dinner and wanted to, date and, um, courted me for a while, I would have maybe considered him. Um, but he just presented me with, you know, I'll be happy to have sex with you anytime you want. And I couldn't go for that. I didn't, no, thank you. And then there was our landlord. Okay, our landlord's uh he was a doctor and his wife, and they were a couple who were they had to be around 60 or so, retired, maybe in their mid 60s, and they were a couple who had been going to the one of the city churches, but when they moved to the country church, when they saw the church was reviving and everything, and they offered their house to me, and that's where I was living. They would take me out to gather wood when I needed and stuff like that. And they had a son who was just about my age, and he had a terrible accident when he was like 17. He was on the beach with some friends. They had like a Jeep, I think. Anyway, it rolled, and he got pinned, and he was paralyzed from his waist down and in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. So he lived right behind us in a house like right behind us on their property. And nice guy, good looking guy, friendly and all that. Well, the mother one day they invited us to lunch, me and the kids, right? When I was alone, Bob, without Bob. And the son was not there, but the older couple or my landlords were there and had lunch. And then after lunch, the husband, the doctor, took the kids out. They had a lake on their property. Took my kids down to the lake, and I was alone with the wife and cleaning up the kitchen. And she asked me to marry her son. And she made the remark to me, which was really stupid. But being that my husband had an affair, she just assumed that I did not like sex and I didn't need it, care about it, right? Which is wrong. And she said that to me. She said, well, some people don't care about sex, don't like it. She said, so anyway, she wanted me to marry her son, who was paralyzed from the waist down. And, I wasn't interested in that. And, uh, maybe I should have, I don't know, but I couldn't do that. I mean, I haven't had a normal sexual appetite. That was just so wrong of her to assume that. Anyway, it was very, very hard for me how do you tell a woman you don't want to marry her son? That was like one of the most difficult things I ever did in my life. Um, and after that, I always felt like she didn't like me anymore. Anyway, I had to share that. So my time's up. Next week will be very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Thanks for watching. I hope all is well with you. God bless.